In my book, The Origin of Species, I not only proposed that life evolves, but presented a mechanism through which it could occur and some observations to support the various steps in this mechanism. For example, the first fact is that species can produce an enormous number of offspring. There is no exception to the rule that every organic being naturally increases at so high a rate that, if not destroyed, the earth would soon be covered by the progeny of a single pair. There are obviously differences in rates of fertility, however. I wrote that one fly may deposit hundreds of eggs, and another, like Hippobosca, a single one. It is also a fact, however, that while there is this enormous potential for reproduction, environmental requirements such as food, water, light, etc. are limited. I wrote in Origin of Species, two canine animals in a time of death may be truly said to be in a struggle for life with each other, which shall get food and live. Thus, food is in limited supply. Or, but a plant on the edge of a desert is said to struggle for life against drought, though more properly it should be said to be dependent on the moisture. Since there may not be enough food or water or oxygen or sunlight for such an enormous number of progeny, it is a fact that not all individuals live to reproduce, as I wrote in Origin of Species. Hence, as more individuals are produced than can possibly survive, there must be, in every case, a struggle for existence, either one individual with another of the same species, or with the individuals of distinct species, or with the physical conditions of life. The real importance of a large number of eggs or seeds is to make up for much destruction at some period of life. I then inferred that there was a struggle to survive and reproduce, and I described it in several examples. For example, in mistletoe, mistletoes are struggling not only with the trees, but also with other mistletoe plants, and also with the birds which are bearing the seeds. And thus, in several senses, one could use the general term struggle for existence. I pointed out the fact that individuals vary in everything. Unless profitable variation occur, natural selection can do nothing. The many slight differences which appear in the offspring from the same parents may be called individual differences. And Mr. Wallace has demonstrated this with the butterflies that he has studied, where there are two or even three conspicuously distinct forms not connected by intermediate varieties. I personally spent a great deal of time studying and documenting the variations in breeds of pigeon. It is a fact that variation is heritable. Now, it is a great misfortune that I did not read the transcendental work of Gregor Mendel, who established the laws of heredity and eventually the field of genetics. And so I freely admitted that the laws governing inheritance were, during my lifetime, for the most part unknown. But it was clear that there was an inheritance of traits, including variations in traits. I then inferred that given that not all individuals survive or reproduce, that there is an unequal survival or level of reproduction based on these inherited characteristics. I have called this principle by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved by the term natural selection. Those which are more resistant to cold would then be more likely to survive and have offspring in the cold. Those insects which most seem like twigs would be most likely to be camouflaged and thus survive to reproduce. There's even a form of sexual selection in that by choosing males which have more attractive plumage or more attractive song, the females are helping to select which variations shall prosper in the future. And if one puts all of these steps together, one can infer that populations will change gradually over time. We cannot suppose that all the breeds of dog and horse and pigeon were suddenly produced as we now see them. Right? These were changed through successive generations, with our domestic organisms being changed by humankind and by the natural species being changed by natural selection. Breeders habitually speak of an animal's organization as something plastic which they can model almost as they please. And surely we see the same in nature. And I therefore propose that this is the cause of the origin of species, that it is this change over time which causes new varieties and ultimately new species to come upon the earth, and for species to better adapt to their environment through natural selection.